Hello and welcome to another episode of the Nostalgic Garden podcast.
Hello.
My name is Emma and I'm here with my mother Caroline.
Hello. Very nice to be with you on this beautiful sunny day.
I thought you were going to say very nice to meet you.
Well, I think we met each other like nearly 20 years ago now, didn't
Almost.
we? Well, the day you were born.
Yeah. Crazy.
It'll be 20 years in October, won't it?
Yeah.
Which is pretty amazing how time flies by.
Yeah,
But,
crazy. Although it doesn't quite fly for me because that's my entire life. So I don't know, it feels like about 20
Well, there's
years.
a theory, isn't there, that time speeds up as you get older, which
Yeah.
I would definitely say is not just a theory, it's my experience.
Yeah.
And the idea, I think, is that when you're 20, 20 years is your lifetime.
Yeah.
And when you're nearly 60, teetering on the edge of 60, like I am, it's only a quarter of my life. And I think the brain sort of gauges time by comparison.
Makes sense.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So that's why it appears to get faster, which is really annoying. I want to Benjamin
annoying.
Button it and go the other way. I want it to slow down so I can make the most of it. But yeah. So
Anyway.
here we are in the school garden.
So it's episode 3 already, which is crazy.
Speaking of time flying.
Yeah, that's true. And yes, thank you for mentioning that, Mum. There's so much. The school garden is looking absolutely gorgeous at the moment. We've got tons of butterflies flying around. I think, well, just a moment ago, just before we hit record, we saw, or Mum pointed out, a beautiful... Oh my God, as soon as I said that, a butterfly just went straight past our eyes. Just before we hit record, we saw a peacock butterfly.
And there goes the red admiral.
Literally, Mum pointing to
Lots
another
of
one.
cabbage whites,
Yeah.
annoyingly near to my cabbages.
Oh,
How dare you?
but
No, they're very welcome, actually.
Full of life here in the school garden, and maybe I should explain what the school garden is.
Yeah.
So, Mother has 2 fantastic businesses. One of them is Caroline Tatum Art, which is this podcast is sort of under that umbrella, where we do art courses and art prints.
Well, I think we should really acknowledge that you're the business brains of that.
Well, it's a joint effort for sure, absolutely.
And it wouldn't exist without you. So you're doing
you.
all of that marketing, all of the business end
Social
of things.
media and everything.
Yeah, and we do it together, don't we? It's a family affair.
We do. It's
which is fun.
Beautiful collaboration, which I'm very, very blessed and grateful to be
likewise
a part of. So we have Caroline Tatum Art, and then also for the last 15, 16 years.
Yeah.
I can't remember if we've mentioned this on the podcast. The thing is, Mum and I both have absolutely terrible memories, so you may find we repeat things.
And a propensity to repeat ourselves.
Yeah, definitely.
Enjoy.
So yes, I think we did mention it briefly in episode 1, but Mum also runs the Cotswold Gardening School. So that's what this we're sat in front of the school building in the school garden, and this is the purpose for the school building and school garden was set up for the Cotswold Gardening School, but we do now use it also for Caroline Tatum Art. So that's what we mean when we say the school garden. It's
because we do art courses as well.
We do art courses, and we're very lucky to run them on site. We literally walked from the house. We walked about 10 seconds.
It's a terrible commute.
It's awful. The traffic was atrocious.
There were butterflies. There was a dog. It was gridlock.
So that's where we are today.
Yeah. So it's the history of this. We're here again with history. We were talking a bit about history last episode, weren't we?
Well, the first one.
Yeah, it was the first one. There I go again. The history of this building is quite interesting. So if you were to look at it, you can tell it's a converted barn, and it was used as a dairy barn for milking for a long time. So it's sort of agricultural. But before that, and we know this because we have a great relationship with the Slimbridge Dowsing Association, and they can do architectural dowsing, so they can come back, if you believe such things, and I'm an old hippie, so I definitely do.
Likewise, young hippie.
They came and they can sort of track the history. But interestingly, it all marries up with the Historical Society as well, that the barn is built on the foundations of what was a chapel going way back when. So we know our house, that the site was a monastery, and it's been a nunnery, and it goes back a long time. And as part of that history, while it was the nunnery, the nuns' chapel was here.
Amazing.
And what's lovely about that is that it still has this incredibly positive energy, which I can definitely feel. And we, for 16 years, have had people coming saying, "Oh, it feels really nice in here." And I'm sure that, you know, that's connected. And in fact, when the dowsers were in here dowsing, they have like what looks like bent over coat hangers, wires, you know, that they do it with. And you can do it with a pendulum and all sorts of other ways, but that's how they were doing it. And when they approached one end of the building, they were spinning like helicopters, these things.
Amazing.
And they said that's always a sign that there's very positive upsurge of energy, which is often associated with there having been an altar in that location. And it's sort of nobody knows whether the altar was there because of the positive energy or vice versa.
It's interesting,
but
isn't it?
That's the place where people often stand and say, "Oh, it feels really lovely in here." And so I sort of feel a little bit of a custodian of that. And it's rather nice to be able to share that positivity through the school or whatever we do in that building.
That's true.
It sort of feels like a building that was meant to be shared.
Yeah,
You know,
it's
which is
beautiful.
nice that we can still do that, I think.
Yeah.
There we go.
It was shared by the cows.
It was shared by the cows. Well, cows are very important.
Cows
aren't
are
they?
very
I'm
important.
sitting here drinking my cappuccino. So thanks to the cows for that one,
Yeah,
definitely.
absolutely.
Yeah. So and the
yeah.
garden that we're sitting in is associated with the school. And for about the first 10 years that we lived here, maybe a bit less, 8 years perhaps, this was our vegetable garden in here.
Wow.
And you might not remember that.
I don't remember it. However, I have seen one or two photographs.
Yeah.
So I have seen it, but I don't remember it actually.
No, and it's perfect up to a point for a vegetable garden because it's walled all the way around. And where you're growing vegetables, what you want is a sheltered site. You want it open because you need a lot of light, but you want it sheltered so it's not too windy. Those are the ideal situation for a vegetable garden.
Is that so vegetables don't sort of blow off?
Yeah, blow
effectively?
over or get damaged by the wind. Absolutely.
Interesting.
And it just the sheltered situation, because there's walls all the way around, that traps heat. Brick walls like this act as radiators.
Makes
So
sense.
they will hold on to heat in the night time, because often one of the things that stunts vegetable growth is that even if it's really nice and warm in the day, if the temperatures really drop in the evening, which can happen a lot in spring in this country, so you might have a gloriously warm day, but then it drops down to 1 degree or something in the evening, and even though it's not freezing, so it won't damage the plants in that sense, in that they're tender, that drop in temperature can stop them growing really strongly.
Wow. So it's very important then.
Yeah,
the heat.
it was, so that's why having a walled space so as soon as we moved in, my eyes lit up and I thought, oh, that's where and it's conveniently close to the house.
Yeah.
But what I did find with it, there's a painted lady butterfly there.
Oh,
Can you see?
I
Isn't that
haven't seen
lovely?
one of those in ages.
Yeah, it's fanning its wings, isn't it, in the sun?
Beautiful.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
One of the downsides to a vegetable garden, it's a lot of work to keep it looking neat and tidy all year round.
Yeah.
And so I found it was just sort of, it looked okay, but I always sort of felt a bit like, oh, I don't like how it looks in the winter, when we were having courses and things in the winter. And also I sort of felt the tyranny of having to keep it looking perfect because it was going to get looked at a lot.
Yeah,
Whereas the nice thing
absolutely.
about having a veg garden that's a bit more out of sight is, if it needs cutting back a bit and all your lettuces have run and set to seed, it doesn't matter, you can leave it for a couple of weeks.
Absolutely.
So there was that. Also, the other reason, though, is the soil here is not that deep.
Right.
And it's set over concrete, ultimately, because of the cow heritage.
Yeah.
So there's like somewhere underneath where we're sitting, there's still big lumps of concrete, which doesn't help with the drainage. So that was always an issue. So long story short, we've now got some raised beds, and we did our podcast from there.
Last episode. We did.
So that's where now I grow my veg, and it's much easier. So that gave me the perfect opportunity to turn this into more of a sort of restful, peaceful, contemplative space. When people are a bit frazzled with their learning about their planting plans, they can just come out here and have a bit of downtime.
Yeah.
And we put gravel down rather than before that we'd had turf.
Yeah.
And changing turf into gravel is like the number one way to reduce maintenance in your garden, because that's the other issue. I couldn't afford to do much in the vegetable garden at the time, so we just kept the existing turf, which then means you've absolutely got to mow it every week.
It's a bit of a catch-22, sort of.
If you want it to look nice and tidy, and it's kind of a bit embarrassing having a gardening school with really messy grass.
Yeah.
So the whole thing just felt like a burden. And when I'm designing gardens for clients, I always say, maintaining the garden, it should not feel like doing outdoor housework. It should feel like a joy.
Yeah.
And this wasn't feeling like a joy. Whereas now I've got my raised beds, they mostly look great.
Yeah.
But if they don't, it doesn't matter. No one's going to see
They're
them,
not right in front of the school building with loads of eyes on them.
Exactly. And I actually renovated the planting this winter. So the nice planting that everyone's going to see in your photos, some of it's been since I first did the makeover about 8 years ago. So the roses are all nice and established because we kept the existing roses. And some of it is new stuff, which was really exciting, which I've propagated.
Do you remember any of your news? Any particular standouts?
You'd be sorry you asked that question. Well, one thing I am pleased with, which isn't actually in the borders here, are the lilies.
Oh, a butterfly's just landed on your chair behind you. Sorry to interrupt. It's a red admiral, I think.
Oh, lovely. Beautiful. Oh, yes.
Just gone.
Yeah, I think that's the same one. It's there's two, actually, into that, having a little competition. Yeah, the lilies, which are not in the beds, they're in pots, which is always a good way to grow lilies. And they've done really well this year. And we had no lily beetle at all. And I was very sort of cocky about that, say, no lily beetle here.
Is that like a beetle that eats them?
Yeah, and unfortunately now we're absolutely deluged with them. Once you get one, that's it. And they're very easy to spot because they are bright red. Like the colour, they're very shiny as well. They're I always think they look like mini post boxes. You can't actually post a letter in them. But they're very much that colour and sort of texture of a painted post box.
Interesting.
And they have this weird phenomenon that if you shake the pot or touch the lily, they all fall off. It's like their survival thing that they do, like they're playing dead. So you can sort of rain lily beetles and things anyway. But anyway, I'm very pleased with my lilies because they've done very well this year. And they are just in pots and they're kind of dotted around rather than in the borders. But in the borders, I've got lots of my old faithfuls like Crocosmia lucifer, which is one of my Nifty 50.
Yeah.
And those are my top 50 plants that I use a lot with clients as well. But I have got new things. So what have I got that's new? I've got lots of peonies.
If I may stop you, the lilies, just very briefly go back to them, they smell so delicious. They're gorgeous. And we've got some red ones and some white ones. And they're both absolutely gorgeous.
There's lots of different ones.
Yeah.
And I made a huge mistake. I moved the lilies yesterday, 2 pots, because for our professional 1-year garden design course, we had our client presentation for the final project, which is always a big deal because the final project is 50% of the students' marks, and they've worked on it for 3 months, and we invited the client in and present the work. So to make the entrance look very welcoming, I moved 2 pots of lilies that were just looking their best. And what I didn't realise was the pollen from one of the lilies got into my very white hair. So I had this kind of weird orange streak where everyone was too polite to mention it. I was walking around with a sort of pollen, like a Nike swoosh on my temple. So, that wasn't intentional.
No, some very natural hair dyeing methods, like henna.
It is, absolutely. Well, it is terribly staining. You have to be careful in the house. And also actually very toxic for cats.
Cats, I was going to say, we've got lovely Auntie Philly, my aunt, who has got 2 lovely cats, and she's always, or at least
very
once
careful.
or twice reminded me of that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. But notoriously people get that on their wedding dresses, and it's like turmeric. Once you get it on, it's really difficult to get it off. I'm sure there are ways of doing it, but it's not easy. So anyway, so yes, I'm very pleased with the lilies. But yes, I've got lots of new stuff which is still settling in and sort of maturing, so isn't necessarily obvious. But I think one of the other things which I particularly love are the Verbena bonariensis. So those are the very tall purple, almost umbelliferous.
I know the ones. Yeah, they're gorgeous. The butterflies, especially the cabbage whites, are obsessed.
Yeah, they are obsessed. And they are a plant that, even though the soil is a bit poor, still does well. Yeah. So they can tolerate the sort of conditions that we've got here. So
are they a Nifty 50?
They are a Nifty 50.
They are a Nifty 50. Well, there you go.
Yeah. And that's a big philosophy of when I teach planting, is that it's fine to just have this select group of plants. There's 500,000 plants in cultivation, and if you're going to try and get to know all of those, you'll just pull your hair out.
Yeah.
And so when we're designing planting, we actually design the planting first and then choose the actual specimens last, which seems very counterintuitive.
Yeah.
And it stops people from like researching 50 plants and then only using 3 of them in their, you know, or 10 of them or whatever.
Interesting.
Is that we actually draw the shape. So you say there's going to be a shrub here, a group of perennials here, some bulbs there, there's a climber here, but you don't know what those plants are yet.
Wow, I didn't know
So you
that.
draw that all up, and it's literally looks like a finished planting plan.
Wow.
And then you label it.
Wow.
So you're choosing a shrub because you've drawn a circle which has a nice proportion
Yes.
in that border, and then you choose the shrub to do that job.
to fit that space.
You don't draw the circle because you know that's going to be whatever, you know. So yeah, that's a big part of what we teach in
That's
planting
interesting.
design. Yeah.
I suppose that goes, we're getting into proper planting design now, sorry. That goes with the whole do your shape work first.
Yeah,
When
exactly.
mum's teaching garden design, you've got to do your shapes and be creative first, because if you think gardens, it doesn't work.
No,
So it's kind of-
exactly.
for some reason, that feels quite sort of
Same
like a
idea.
similar philosophy.
Yeah, it's a bit
Yes.
counterintuitive.
A little bit.
What you're really doing is suspending logic.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and logic is always trying to be helpful, but quite often gets in the way of creativity.
Yeah.
So you've got these 2 different sides to the brain.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
the left brain is more the logical side, and the right side of the brain is more creative.
Yeah.
And, you know, I can feel myself clunking between the 2 because
Amazing.
I'm so used to it. But that's a big thing that we teach in the garden design course and on the art courses, actually, is to encourage people to feel confident in that side of the brain, because, you know, lots of people come on various courses of mine and they sort of almost feel a bit apologetic and say, well, I'm not very creative. That's what we hear that so much. And actually, we're all creative. It's the difference between us and AI, is we are actually creative.
Because we have a soul.
Yeah, we have a soul, and that's what you need. You need one of them.
Yeah.
And ideally an inner child. And I know we have talked about the inner child before, but that is the source of all our creativity, because it isn't self-conscious and it isn't trying to be logical and grown up and do what it should do. It just does what it does.
Yeah.
And that's what creativity is, really. The more you can play, the better it gets, which is so difficult to do. It's like when you're feeling depressed and someone says, oh, just smile. And you're like, oh, if it was that easy. You
Or
know.
the worst part in an argument, just calm down.
Yeah.
No!
Exactly. And that's the same, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it is possible, and the way to do it is to allow yourself to play, find something you enjoy and play. And that's what I'm trying to do at the moment, actually, because I absolutely love all the work that I've done using watercolours, but I really wanted to get into using some inks in my painting side of my life. And so I bought myself some inks, which was it was any excuse to buy new art materials. It's like the best you could do. And I saw some on sale, so it was like, oh, it's a sign.
The universe wants me to do it.
Yeah. So I got myself some inks, and yeah, it's I've just been playing, and I'm really enjoying it, because it's easy to get into a rut when you're being creative in terms of producing work professionally.
Yeah.
And I've found that's one of the differences between just doing it as a hobby, which is really important to me, and I will always paint as a hobby because I have to. And it's hard to describe, but, you know, I have to do it.
Fuels you. Do you know
I
what's
have to do it.
That's really funny. I was watching a video yesterday, just while I was working, listening in the background while I was doing something, and someone literally said that exact same sentence, referring to something artistic.
Yeah.
I can't. Was it you? Was
Maybe.
it you? Or was it? I think it was a video.
I've heard it before. I think
it was a video yesterday.
yeah.
They literally said the exact same thing.
Yeah.
I have to be creative. I
Yeah,
have to.
I know.
Which is so beautiful. I love that.
Yeah, I think we've all got that, actually. Just some people aren't aware, and that sounds really patronising, but I think modern life has done such a good job of separating people from their creativity and their innate connection to nature, and, you know, other various fundamental sort of elements of being a human being. Modern life is very good at, you know, all our food comes from a supermarket, and, you know, everything's provided for us, and actually supermarkets have only existed for, I don't know, since the 60s, you know, not even 100 years, nowhere near 100
It's
years.
insane, isn't it?
And
Yeah.
how long have human beings been on the planet? But it's
Yeah.
become kind of normal to us.
Yeah.
And actually it's really not normal. And there's something really healthy about having that connection to seasonality, and that's been an important part of being a human being for millennia. You know, and I think it's the same with creativity. And you know, maybe in history in the past, people didn't have the luxury of being able to be creative because they were busy trying to survive.
Yeah,
because they were living in a cave. But even in a cave, people were being creative.
They did their lovely cave art, didn't they?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's so many ways of being creative. It doesn't have to be painting, does it? It can be making a beautiful outfit for your child, or making bread, or you know, there's lots of ways of being creative. But
I like to do ceramics.
You like to do ceramics, but I think even the way you dress or the way you speak, or you know, there's lots of ways of having fun and playing and doing things a bit differently.
Self-expression?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's what art is.
Yeah.
It is self-expression. But now, I've definitely heard people saying before, I do it because I have to do it. And I think I really understand that. You know, it's kind of necessary for my mental health.
It's a basic human need, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I could do without other things before I could do without being able to paint. So
that's beautiful.
So,
I need that on a shirt.
we should do some. But, I'm just distracted. There's a very beautiful buzzard.
Beautiful. I saw a red kite yesterday.
Oh, but it's so close, isn't he?
It's lovely.
Or she?
Yeah.
Very close.
Gorgeous.
Oh, he's swooping down after something.
I saw it. I saw the swoop.
Yeah, big swoop.
Beautiful.
So
today you've just finished off
Yes.
your first of a new art style with inks.
With inks. And I don't know, I mean, I'm sure it'll go somewhere. This is just the first piece that I've done. I've done a kingfisher in orange and turquoise, of course. Not of course, because you don't have to.
That's true.
Part of being creativity is you can paint things how you like.
Make your own rules up.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the joy of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I have actually chosen lifelike colours, which I tend to do with watercolours as well.
Yeah.
But there's just something interesting and different about how the ink behaves on the paper. So I've used the same paper as normal, same brushes, but just the only difference is the media in the sense of ink rather than watercolour. And I have even done wet on wet technique, which is a technique I use with watercolour. But the ink just behaves differently. It separates differently. It blends differently. So that's really fun. And it's, you know, it's the adult equivalent to making mud pies or perfume from rose petals.
Yeah.
You're just playing and seeing what happens.
I was just about to say, did you find that, like you were saying, the ink behaves differently? Did you find that like a fun way to play? And I was literally going to say, let your inner child
definitely
have fun. Yeah.
It brings in that little bit of unpredictability, which play requires, I think. Logic hates that. Logic wants to know exactly what's going to happen and wants it to be predictable. And I think with painting, if I get too into the idea of, I wonder what, you know, is most likely to please the person that's commissioned me or is going to sell on the website or whatever, then I'm getting too into logic and it just kills off the creativity.
Yeah.
And I think what's really important, and for me, I think using this new medium is really helping me with that, is to just get back into that playful exploration. And that's something I've really tried to incorporate into some of our online courses. You know, we've got the second one coming up soon,
yes, the
haven't we?
contemporary watercolours from experiment to outcome.
Yeah, and I think
as the name suggests.
Exactly. And I really wanted that experimentation in that course because I think, you know, it's so important for people who are a bit nervous about their creativity. Connecting them back to that exploration and just playfulness is really important. So this idea that it's good to be prepared, it's great to set a colour palette and be logical in some ways, because otherwise there's no structure. Yeah. But within that framework allows some playful exploration. And I think getting that balance right is so important in art.
Definitely.
So that it isn't just chaos and you don't just end up smothering your face in paint.
Well, I suppose...
rocking in a corner somewhere.
For some people, I suppose that's their art,
exactly.
isn't it?
No, I'm
not
not
my
judging.
art.
I'm not judging. But I do think that's something I've perfected over the years that I've been painting. It's good to be structured and prepared, but still keep enough wriggle room that you can play and create and have that. Yeah.
I suppose, and we might have some people listening wondering how you do that. I'm just guessing here. Is it that you prepare beforehand? Oh my goodness, the butterfly just went right past my eyes again. Is it that you prepare beforehand? So you prepare your colour palette.
Yes.
And you know the materials you're going to use.
Yeah.
And then do you sort of let loose, or do you have a little bit of logic throughout the whole thing?
Well, I think it's quite personal. that, the degree of preparation. I mean, I think some things are universal, and I've just contradicted myself. But some elements of it are universal and some elements are personal. And what do I mean by that? I think it's universally true that if you just have an idea about what colours you're going to use, that is always helpful, I find.
Yeah.
Because certainly before I did that, when I was in creative mode, it's very easy to just lose, for me personally, and I see it in other people, to lose sight of what actually is it I'm trying to achieve. You know, unless what it is that you're trying to achieve is just make marks in your sketchbook.
And
play. And
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with that. But normally if you want to produce something at the end of it, which is a final piece, then that element of preparation, to have a colour palette, stops you making bad decisions, or helps to prevent you from making bad decisions. Because even when we're playing, we can make bad decisions in terms of what the final outcome will look like. And so it's that, as I say, it's that balancing act. So things that I think are good to prepare is to have a colour palette, and depending on your art style, to have some kind of preliminary sketch to work to. And for some people that means literally sketching the whole thing out and then painting it up. Nothing wrong with that. And you can put pencil on your paper and then you can ink over that or watercolour over that. But for other people it might be doing a preliminary sketch just in your sketchbook, so that you've sort of, you know, it doesn't have to be in detail, but you've got a broad idea, so that you don't have that tyranny of the terrifying blank white sheet of paper and I don't know where to start. And if you've already made a decision about colour and a decision about composition, and there's so many ways of doing that, and we do that on that four-week course, because you can sketch it, you can literally collage it, so you can do sketches in your sketchbook, photocopy those, cut them out, and then position those on, you know, so you are, some people's minds, I've through experience learnt, work really well in that way. Some people are not comfortable just sketching.
That's me. I don't like pencil sketching.
And there's
I
no
like
apology.
collage.
No apology for that. It's just how your brain works. You're not wrong. It's, you know, and unfortunately we've been brought up a bit on a diet of Instagram reels, which are really impressive, of those people who are able to sit and sketch that, and good for them. I don't do that either. It doesn't mean I'm a terrible artist.
No,
it's just
not
not the way for me. But I think we're all really hard at judging ourselves and really struggle with imposter syndrome, which says that, you know, logic again wants to tell us this is how you should do it. And that's not right. You have your way of doing it, which is correct for you. You know, having said that, you can make bad decisions in terms of, you know, mixing colours that start to get muddy, or because it just isn't giving you the result that you want. So I'm not saying, you know, you might want muddy mixed colours and then it's correct. You know.
I suppose it depends on your preferred outcome, doesn't it?
And I just think if you've got an idea about what you want that outcome to be, you've got an intention, then you're much more likely to achieve it than if you're just, you know, don't get me wrong, there's nothing, for me, this is what sketchbooks are for. It's great to sit down and not actually know what you're going to achieve and just play. That's what sketchbooks are for. But when you're actually producing a final piece that you might want to give to someone or sell, or you know, I think it's really, really good to have an intention. And that for me is what preparation is. But even in those pieces, I usually haven't got it completely buttoned down. You know, I'll have an idea, I might have a sketch and I'll have a colour palette, but some of the details I will just go with a spontaneous moment. And for me, that's part of that balancing act. But I think it's very personal. Some people just are more confident at mark making, and that's wonderful. Other people not so much.
And maybe it's practice.
It's a lot of practice, and you know, I think when I first started doing watercolours, it was almost like paint by numbers, because I'd done such a detailed preparatory sketch. Almost I'd eliminated that element of play too much. But I needed to do that to get to where I wanted to be. So no self-criticism.
Good. We love to hear it.
But yeah, it's a very personal thing. And I think the main takeaway from all of that is that if it works for you, it's right for you. And if you're getting the results you want, go with it. If you're not getting the results that you want, then maybe just do a little bit of preparation ahead of time to make decisions. But I think one of the number one ways that people, and I include myself in this, go wrong with painting when they first really get into it is too many colours.
Yes,
Because
absolutely.
having a nice, crisp, clear, limited colour palette.
Like on our weekly sheets, cough, cough.
Exactly. And that's why I really wanted to do those colour palettes on this, because I've learnt that from my own experience, how beneficial that is. And this week's weekly sheet is going to be of the school garden here. 'Cause we always do, when we do a podcast, don't we? We do the weekly sheet with
in
images.
Same location.
Yes, so people can see it. And just remind me where people can find the weekly sheets.
Thank you very much. They can be found by two places. So you could either sign up to our mailing list, and then you'll get a weekly notification every Monday of the weekly sheets, or you can join our free Facebook group called Creative Space, and links to both of those are in the podcast description, or can also be found on our website. And just a very quick summary of the weekly sheets if we've got any wonderful new listeners. So you will see on this podcast episode one of the images of those weekly sheets, obviously where we are currently sat in the school garden. And
Milo.
Milo is just hacking away. He wants to have his two penneth said.
He does. He's our chihuahua, and he does like to remind us he's the most important member of the house.
He does. He says, "I'm still here. I want to say something on the podcast."
Yeah.
So yes, you'll see one of the images from the weekly sheets on this podcast episode, and then if you want to see more of where we're sat and what we're talking about, as in the school garden, then you can download those weekly sheets for free. And also, as we briefly mentioned, there is a colour palette which Mum beautifully puts together and curates. And if you wanted any art inspiration as well as a little nose around our current location that we're sat in, then you can download those weekly sheets for free.
Amazing.
We were just talking about almost the difference between sketchbook play, where it's just inner child, and then playing but with a bit of logic for creating a final piece. And I found it, I knew the difference, but I think the way you explained it was quite interesting to sort of
thank you.
really understand that there's kind of two
mindsets.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Two mindsets.
Yeah.
Which
I guess a
interesting.
sketchbook, it's like a dummy run, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you can take a risk in that. It's very private.
It's a judgment-free
It's judgment-free.
Yeah.
Exactly. No one else ever needs to see your sketchbook.
Yeah.
I always say it's like your creative diary. And it's
that's
sort
beautiful.
of
I
it's
love that.
just for your eyes only. And again, I think I sort of got it in for Instagram today. I honestly haven't, but there are a lot of videos on Instagram of people flicking through these immaculate sketchbooks, which is really tricky for the logical side of our brain. Loves that and thinks, oh, that's how a good sketchbook should look.
Yeah.
And I think when we want to not use the word should, we want to swap it out for the word
could. We had that at my primary school, and it was so lovely.
Did you?
Yes, we did. Stone with Woodford, Mrs. McCalmont.
Mrs. McCalmont is a rock star.
Mrs. McCalmont is absolutely effing awesome.
She was the headmistress, wasn't she?
She was the headmistress, absolutely. And I was only there from just the end of year 4 and then year 5 and 6. And in year 5 and 6, I had Mrs. McCalmont as my main teacher, even though she was also the head teacher. And she was absolutely amazing.
She was amazing.
She was great.
And I'm sure still is.
I'm sure she absolutely still is. I got two funny stories about her, actually. Just a quick Mrs. McCalmont side tangent. She was fantastic. She was so in favour of creative writing was her favourite thing. And I absolutely love creative writing. And she always really encouraged me and made me feel very confident in that, which was really lovely. She was very very lovely with that. So my two stories is, first of all, she, as well as being a fantastic headmistress and main teacher to year 5 and 6, she's a busy lady. She also would train her dog, which was is it a dashhound or dachshund?
Sorry to butt in. I think she was a breeder.
Oh, a
perhaps.
breeder, right?
Or rather than because she entered Crufts, didn't she?
I was going to say, I didn't. Thank you. Didn't explain that well. She trained her own dog.
Oh, okay.
Well, because she entered Crufts, she must have done.
But it wasn't like dog agility or anything. It was. No,
right.
I think it was like I absolutely know nothing.
No,
about
that
it.
makes sense.
I'm venturing into territory I don't know about.
No, me too. I was just putting pieces together.
They people come to Crufts with dogs and they're judged against what's considered a standard
of beauty,
the perfect,
right?
Whatever dog.
I thought it was agility.
I think she had Dachshunds, did she?
Yes, it is. Like sausage dogs. Is that another word?
But
for
wired-haired ones. I don't.
I believe so.
Probably, I don't know whether there's a separate category for wired-haired and smooth-coated. I don't know.
Maybe.
But anyway, that was her breed. So
Yeah.
I think you would breed them and then bring them to Crufts.
Yes.
To be judged against this standard, and then you'd get like the best Dachshund, and then you get the best hound, and then you get the best in show, don't you?
Yes.
So there's all these categories, and I think I'm right in saying she got best in the whole show.
I'm pretty certain
won the
she
whole
did,
damn thing,
which was absolutely amazing.
Which is like just some random, your lovely head teacher in some primary school actually got top of Crufts.
And that's
phenomenal.
like a national thing, right? Isn't that like the best of like
international?
Oh, international, right? Blimey.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Crufts is national, but
Yeah.
it happens all over the world, I think. But
Yeah.
it's a big deal.
It's
anyway.
a huge deal.
It's a huge deal.
And I was really proud of her for that, obviously, because she taught me. So I was like, oh,
you are her favourite Dachshund.
Exactly. And that was just so lovely to see. She's such a lovely woman. Anyway. As you say, I'm sure she still is. But the funny part is after she won her medal for, as you say, pretty certain best in show, very shortly after, while she was still being filmed, like in the Crufts Stadium thing, the dog did a poo.
She handled it so magnificently. She was probably thinking to herself, I've been wrangling primary school children for decades. This is nothing. So she just got a little bag out and scooped it up. It was all
carried on.
All dealt with, wasn't it? Very Mrs. McCalmont.
It was.
Took it all in her stride. But
She's
what an amazing
fantastic
woman.
Well, and my other mini side tangent is, I think I may have very, very briefly mentioned on episode 1 that only for a very short while, for a summer, a couple of years ago, I worked at a local garden centre, which was super lovely. Everyone there was absolutely wonderful. I met my good friend Imi there, and we're still good friends. And whilst I was there, on my first day of working there, this was the first, 5 minutes. Honestly, I just started. Guess who walked through the door? Mrs. McCalmont!
With a dog or on her own?
I think she was on her own.
Okay.
I think she was on her own. And this was also Mother's Day.
Oh.
I think it was Mother's Day, so it was very chaotic. Oh my gosh, that day
was a baptism
it was
of
crazy,
fire.
honestly. And I remember the lovely manager John said, "I'm throwing you into the deep end head first here because the tills shut down." And anyway, boring, but it was very chaotic at the time. But unfortunately, I didn't want to say hello to Mrs. McCalmont because I'd literally just started this new job, so I didn't want to be like, hello, and like I was busy.
Let's sit down and have a chat.
I know, I was busy like deadheading or something like that. So I couldn't go over and say hello, which was a real shame because I really wanted to, and I haven't seen her since. So, so hopefully I will see her again at some point.
I'm sure you will,
and I'll be able to wish her a congratulations on Crufts, which
amazing.
is probably longer ago than we think now. It's probably around. Maybe just before COVID,
I think it was.
Maybe? Like 2018,
We're
19.
back to that thing of time rushing away from us again.
That's
aren't we?
true. Yeah.
And that's one of the things I love about gardening, is that it's so inextricably linked to time changing and evolving and seasonality and looking ahead.
Yeah.
And that's a bit of a cliche, really, about gardeners, but it's so true, like many cliches, that one of the wonderful things is you're always planning ahead, looking forward to the next season.
Yeah.
Which in the summer is slightly sad because it means we're looking ahead to the autumn. But even then, not so much, because we've got hydrangeas coming out and grasses flowering and things changing in the garden, and that's something I've really deepened my appreciation of that since I've been a garden designer and gardener, is just being really part of nature, which is what we've evolved to be. Human beings are meant to be. Nature isn't a thing separate to us. We are nature.
We are, absolutely.
We should be, you know. And I think that's a wonderful thing about gardening, and that's why I like painting gardens and flowers. It sort of it takes that appreciation onto another level altogether.
You almost get to share that appreciation, would you say? It's almost like, because we were saying that art is an expression of yourself, isn't it? And it's like, here's all my excitement and appreciation about gardening. Now let me share it with everyone else.
Exactly. And I think that's what painting allows you. That's the difference between a painting and a photograph. A painting has got emotion in it because how you apply the paint, the marks that you make, the the composition has an emotional resonance.
Yeah.
So, and I'm enjoying that actually about using the inks and the way that they're behaving, is it feels a little bit more spontaneous, and I feel more the energy going into the work that I'm doing. We can hear there's a plane just gone overhead.
Yeah, super loud one, very low down.
That was
as well.
really low, wasn't it?
Yeah, we could see it really clearly.
Yeah. Interesting.
So that's what you're enjoying about the inks?
Yeah, very much so. I'll tell you what
lovely.
else I'm enjoying, a bit random, as we're sitting here. I keep looking down on the ground because you've got your lovely bare feet on the gravel here.
I'm doing some good grounding.
You are doing some excellent grounding. I should do the same, actually.
Oh.
But what I'm noticing, which the sort of thing makes me really happy, is last year's Verbena bonariensis has set seeds into the gravel. And all these, can you see these tiny little plants here?
Yeah.
They're all Verbena bonariensis.
I know the name, but I can't picture it. What's that?
We were talking about it earlier. It's that tall purple one.
Oh, yes, I know the
So
fella.
if you think, and what's magnificent about seedlings in gravel like that, they're so easy to pull out. So you can gently pull them out, and the roots will be intact. And I'm going to pot those on.
Oh, that's
And
beautiful.
put them in the polytunnel, and that's a whole load of free plants. But just sitting here, probably because I'm a messy gardener and my gravel's sort of got lots of self-seeded things. There's Verbena there. That's Echinops, the one that looks like thistles. So look at that, how many free plants I've got there.
And what does that end up looking like? Does it have a flower on it?
Yeah, that's really tall. There's one at the bottom of the garden. It has like a very circular flower on a stick, basically.
What colour?
They're blues and whites.
Yes, I think I know the
yeah.
one, yeah.
And also there's an aquilegia just by your foot, the frilly leaf thing.
Oh, lovely.
So yeah, I'm sitting looking around counting up how many free plants I've got. Quite a few.
Mum's mind is wandering.
Always distracted by plants.
Oh.
So yeah, that's making me really happy because I'm sort of planning what to do with them.
Well, that is ironic because we were just talking about how gardeners always are blooming planning.
Exactly. No, we never stop. And it is very optimistic. That makes you look ahead, which is what, and even if something goes wrong, like right now, my polytunnel, most of my tomatoes are full of blight, and that's really depressing.
Oh, that is a bit
Because I've grown
annoying.
them all from seed.
Oh.
I have actually bought some blight-resistant varieties, and I'm sort of trialling those at the moment. But so things do go wrong.
Yeah.
No matter how well you're prepared in gardening, or
I guess that's part of the fun.
part of the
almost.
fun in a way, absolutely, because then you sort of think, well, next year I think I'll grow my tomatoes outside. I have got some in the raised beds outside, and they're doing brilliantly, because that's one
great.
benefit of this really sunny weather that we're having.
Yeah.
And they're all blight free.
Oh, good.
That's the downside of the polytunnel, is it's not particularly well ventilated.
Is that what causes blight?
It is really. It's a fungal infection.
Right.
And the antidote to any fungal infection in the garden is good ventilation, and actually, ironically, not letting things dry out. Not having them soggy all the time, but you get things like mildew when things are not watered enough. But the fungal spores love moist, damp air that's not moving around. So the answer to that is ventilation.
Yeah.
But not stinting on the irrigation, because what you want is a plant with a healthy immune system.
Yeah,
And that
which
it
we
needs-
talked about last episode.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you don't want that water to hang around then, which is what the ventilation does. And unfortunately, polytunnel, of course, it's a giant plastic bag, really.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of, that is a bit of an issue. Whereas outside in my raised beds, the tomatoes are all
Thriving.
looking great.
Oh, that's
yeah.
awesome.
Got blue tomatoes.
Blue? That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
They're not really blue.
I know, but still.
They're kind of like dark red,
But
purpley
that's
red.
even
Yeah.
so, it's not your classic red.
No, and yellow ones, which are really sweet. So,
Actually, that reminds me, we may have talked about this on the podcast. I don't think we did. I think this was just a conversation you and I had. You were telling me last week that when you used to work at M&S,
Yes.
didn't you have a friend, or you knew someone who
Yeah,
worked in the food department, and she would reject
Yeah,
tomatoes that didn't look
We're
beautiful?
the right colour red.
Yeah.
There was literally a shade card.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Isn't that crazy?
And then we're back to supermarkets, aren't we? I mean, supermarkets are wonderful things for many people, and I can see the convenience, and I use them myself, so I can't really criticise. But they have done a wonderful job of making us lose sense of seasonality, and to have that expectation that everything looks perfectly lined up.
Yeah.
And, I do buy ugly vegetables. They're a bit cheaper.
You're so kind.
And that's good, though. Some supermarkets have started doing that. Like the aubergines we get.
Yeah.
They are... I can't remember what they call them. They don't call them ugly aubergines. But they're like... And they come and they're a funny shape and they're a bit brown on one side.
Yeah.
But they're perfectly fresh.
Yeah.
They just don't look like the exact uniform shape.
Yeah, funny.
And that's great that we've got the choice, isn't it?
Definitely. They're not just rejecting them and throwing them away.
But definitely things taste better when you pick them yourself.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I think the day before's lunch that we had with Dad, I literally, the lettuce that was on our plate had been growing about 20 minutes before we said, you can't get any fresher than that.
No.
And I think you enjoyed the peas, didn't you?
Yeah. I enjoy everything from the raised beds and the polytunnel. Yeah, the peas, delicious flavour. The cucumbers, amazing.
Yeah.
And earlier on in the season, the strawberries.
Yeah.
Just all of them have so much flavour.
And right now we're sort of being rather drowned by an oceanic quantity of sweet peas.
Yeah.
So everyone who comes to the house, the first question we said, would you like some sweet peas?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's lovely though.
It's a nice problem to have.
And it just makes the house just smell of just beautiful summery florals.
Because we've got that beautiful luxury, which I'm very grateful for, of those raised beds, it means areas like where we're sitting now with the school garden, I don't have to cut those flowers for myself.
That's true. You can just keep it as it is,
because they're a bit more sacrificial, the ones in the raised beds. They're like, hey, bad deal. But a lot of those are sort of hardy annuals and plants which are grown purely like a produce, to be harvested.
Well, it's like a cutting garden, isn't it?
It is, literally.
Yeah.
And yet here it's more perennials and shrubs and things which are a bit lower maintenance.
Yeah.
But are grown just to make the school look good, which I'm so pleased with how it looks at the moment.
Oh my gosh.
I really love
we
it.
were just saying while we sat down, Mum was just saying, I absolutely love it in here. Did you say it's like one of the best it's looked in
for a long
years?
time.
Or,
it is.
Yeah, no, it's
beautiful.
beautiful.
Such a sun trap, isn't it, here?
Yeah,
it's
great. It's lovely. And we've got... last summer, about almost pretty much exactly a year ago, I think, Mum invested in some beautiful, very fancy outdoor furniture. In the sale, but very, very nice. And the quality is fantastic. We were just saying that the chairs we're sitting on are so comfortable.
They're nice. It's my favourite brand. It's called Four Seasons Outdoor. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure where they're made. What
Europe?
Yeah, not sure where, I'm ashamed to say, but anyway, you can buy them in this country for sure. They are the best quality. It's like that sort of fake rattan, plastic rattan, but it's like zero maintenance. You just leave them, and
brilliant.
It's amazing, really. They cope with being frozen and rained on and the hot sun, and they somehow just always remain the same. So that was a bit of a splurge.
But the students, it's a tax write-off, to quote It's Creek. The students love it as well. Like we mentioned, if they need a break, they can come out, sit on the beautiful Four Seasons furniture, and just admire the beautiful planting around them.
Definitely. So I'm very pleased with how things are looking here, and we also have Sam to thank for that. So
we do.
Wonderful Sam, who careful listeners might hear the odd chop happening in the background, and we're very lucky. I've, in my 60th year, decided I'd get a bit of help in the garden. It was up until this year, I've sort of pretty much done it all on my own.
It's amazing. With some help from my brother.
Yes, that's true.
You have
Dad
done
does the mowing, and
you've done
helped
loads.
In the past,
barely. I've done the occasional weeding of the gravel, which, as we just mentioned, is currently very overgrown with weeds. So clearly, I haven't done it for a while.
I have to be honest. I prefer it when it's got a bit of weedage in. I don't like it too pristine. And that's the nice thing about being into wildlife gardening, is it gives you the perfect excuse to be really messy. All those piles of stuff I haven't cleared away. Oh, it's for the insects.
Exactly, absolutely.
It's not that I'm lazy.
No.
So
so wonderful Sam.
Wonderful Sam, and he's just working next to us at the moment. In my 60th year, I thought, you know what, I'm going to get some help with things like the hedges, which you have to climb up ladders to do, and
really tall ones as well, like 10. Well, maybe not 10 feet, but it feels really tall. Yeah.
And in the winter, he helped me clear these school borders. We had a bit of an infestation of Carex pendula, which
Yeah.
is a really tough sedge grass.
Well, I pulled some of them out,
did.
and blimey, some of them took
You
about
did.
3 hours each. It was so satisfying, though.
Yeah.
But I do remember, I think it was this time last year. It was really hot, and it was raining, and it was dark, and it was a bit of a
Hot, raining and dark. That's an unusual combination, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, but
Maybe it was like a
hot.
thunderstorm or something.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a wasp just
Oh!
Oh, it's gone.
Oh,
It's gone.
oh
You're
my
all
god.
right.
I've been stung 3 times, once on the neck when I was 5, so I'm not really a big fan of wasps.
Oh.
Anyway, I remember pulling out one and it was a nightmare, but oh my god, when I did it, it was like big relief, and it
Yeah.
looked amazing, like the fact that it had
Oh.
gone. So
And that,
yeah.
of course, created a wonderful vacuum for putting all my new plants in.
Yes.
As we were talking about earlier.
Absolutely.
So yeah, and it's amazing how it's just filled back out, because if you think what it looked like when Sam
Oh
and
my
I-
gosh.
and you had finished clearing it,
Yeah.
it was like nothing, the odd spindly rose.
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah, yeah.
there?
Well, even, I would say, maybe I've misremembered because I have a terrible memory, maybe even like a couple months ago,
Yeah.
it was really bare earth, and,
Yeah.
you know, not that long ago.
It's
And
amazing
as
this
you
time
say,
of year.
Yeah,
There's always it
completely.
always happens in the sort of equinox time. Everything just there's
Mm.
2 times I always think nature does a really big push
Mm-hmm.
in borders. One is in the spring,
Yeah.
obviously, when things get going. So in May,
Yeah.
about the time of Chelsea, then they're very
Yes.
clever. They know what they're doing.
They
And
do.
So that's the time when everything suddenly surges. And then about midsummer,
Yeah.
I think there's another one. And then after
Interesting.
that, things start to accept that they're headed towards autumn, I always think.
Yeah.
Which is wonderful. And, some people, autumn is their favourite season.
Oh, I know many people who
Yeah.
I absolutely despise autumn because I love the summer.
I hope I don't despise
I do.
it. But it's, I love spring so much.
Yeah.
that I know I'm sort of farthest away from spring as I can get.
Yeah.
But then it's amazing to me, and I'm 60, so you'd think I've got my head around this, but it still amazes me that after June the 21st, the days are going to start to
I know.
get shorter.
It's
again.
crazy, isn't it?
It's just,
yeah.
I don't know, that just... And then in December the 21st, they start to get... That sort of keeps me going in the winter, really.
Yeah.
Is that once we've turned that corner, you think, at least the days are starting to get longer again.
We're headed
But,
in the right direction.
But I wouldn't change a thing, As we were saying before about the seasons, I do love the seasonality, and you
Yeah.
can't have spring unless you've got the autumn.
Absolutely.
So that's a sort of very yin and yang sort of approach. isn't
Definitely.
it?
There's a saying or a quote I heard once which I liked, which is stars can't shine without the darkness.
Oh, I love that.
And that
It's
reminds
so
me
true.
of that, and it's
Yeah.
quite beautiful,
It's
isn't
very
it?
beautiful.
Yeah.
Now, I
oh,
noticed...
sorry, can I just ask a very quick
Yeah, of course you
question,
can.
actually?
Of course you
When you were saying that the planting... or that nature has 2 big surges.
Yes.
We've got spring and
Yeah.
then midsummer. Do you think that same sort of energy, you could call it, affects humans? Or would you say... Because you were saying that
do.
we are nature.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's a
You
nice
might not have an
question.
answer, but I was just
No,
thinking...
I think it does.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously not in terms of growth necessarily. But yes, I do. I think there are natural rhythms that we're, you only need to see what happens when we're sort of removed from those natural rhythms, like jet lag. We have a sort of natural way that the body regulates itself.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's tied into the seasons. And I think, I'm not an expert on this either, but, biodynamic gardening is a really good example of that. And you can now do courses in it. I mean, it's a thing. It's
Yeah.
not just sort of woo-woo weirdness. It is a thing. And very, very sort of shallow understanding that I have is that a bit like we see with tides, how they are affected by the moon,
Yeah.
the gravity, that the water is literally pulled forward and pushed back, that is happening within plants. So there are good times of the year or of the month to plant seeds. There's
Wow.
good times to harvest. There's good times to whatever, based on all of those kind of natural rhythms. So yeah, I definitely believe that's the thing. I don't know anything about it, and it's something actually I've got at the back of my mind that I'd love to do. That when I'm retired, I'd love to get into that more, and I've got more time to. Because I'm dyslexic, reading is
Oh.
a big undertaking for me, but I do it. So that's something I'm aware of.
Yeah.
And don't know much about, but would love to know more. So yes, I think there are all kinds of. That's just one example on a sort of monthly basis. I mean, there's the woman's cycle.
Yeah.
Which is very in tune with. It's not coincidental, I think, that the moon has a 28 days.
I know. I
well.
find that really interesting.
I don't think that is at all by coincidence.
No.
I don't think we really understand it.
No.
So yes, I do. But in terms of May, and that's I absolutely know. And I was talking to my professional 1-year garden design students about this yesterday. Is that garden design is quite cyclical because people do tend to. When they first smell, you can smell spring. You can feel that. You feel
Freshness.
the energy. You're aware of it.
Yeah.
And people suddenly remember they've got a garden.
Yeah.
And that's when they pick the phone up and get interested in people coming to design their garden. Usually they want it done by that summer, which is usually not possible. Because summer's going to happen in a couple of months.
Yeah.
So, and again, that's about planning and about understanding seasonality, because you want to really be putting plants in the ground in the autumn, ideally.
I think we mentioned last episode.
That's the perfect time. And so you can work backwards from that. When's the best time to build the garden? Because when you're building a garden, there's always kind of 3 separate stages. One is the groundworks, which is if you're changing any levels or doing any excavation or removing anything. Yeah. It's just the soil, the ground, getting that right.
Right.
So the groundworks first, then the hard landscaping. So that's putting in paths, paving, anything not planty. Get that right, and then the plants are always the last bit that goes in.
Wow, so you need to be thinking about it before autumn, then, effectively.
Exactly. And that's the... So anyway, do I think we're connected to that surge? I do, because I think people are aware of it. If they choose to be, and I know I've talked about this before, but I'm very aware myself that when I worked in London and I was commuting on a bus and leaving the house, it was dark. Getting home, it was dark. Spring would kind of happen, and I would notice it a few weeks later. Yeah. And I could feel that wasn't healthy. Yeah. I could feel that wasn't right. And whereas now, because I'm gardening every day, or I'm out in the garden every day, I am really in tune with it, and it feels really good. It does feel really good. So,
makes sense.
And I think painting is another way to do that. It's observing and being aware of your surroundings. Even if it's just looking out of your window, if you haven't got a garden, just painting what you can see out of your window, or going to a park and doing some sketches. Or, I think painting is another way, as well as gardening, of connecting into nature. So yeah,
I love it.
I do think we're connected. Now, I was going to talk about Milo.
He's here.
Oh, he is.
He's
there.
under the table.
He's very sensibly in the shade.
He is.
He's not silly, even though he does have Mexican fur.
He does. So he's all right with his coat. Lottie, our half Jack Russell, half Chihuahua, she is not enjoying this heat.
No,
she's got a thick black double coat, and she's panting away, bless her. And I try and give her ice cubes and gently mist her with a spray bottle. She does not care for it. And I'm like, well, Lottie, you're really hot and uncomfortable, so it's either this or being hot. I don't know what you want. She's like, I don't want that. I'm like, okay, well, you can just be hot then.
But we gave her a good old
clipping.
Yeah. Which she wasn't too bad.
She was all right,
I'd rather
actually.
we hadn't done it.
But I think she's happy it's done now.
She is.
Yeah, so we couldn't really book a dog grooming.
We left it too late.
Yeah, we did. We didn't really plan ahead like we should have done with the garden.
Exactly.
So we can't be too... Anyway, we couldn't get one for like 5 weeks, an appointment, so we just said, we'll just buy some clippers ourselves. And Mum did a very good job, I think.
You.
So we did it together.
I just thought of her as a topiary bush. And that was okay.
Did you do any like peacock designs?
No. I think I'll give her finials next time.
So yes, I'm hoping she's grateful for the the clipping. But
Milo had a little shock.
He did. I'm glad you brought it up. I wanted to tell everyone about it. Yeah. So he's absolutely fine, but a few, maybe 3 nights ago, he went out for a wee just before bed, as he always does, and we've got 3 dogs, and they always go out just for a pre-sleep wee, and then they come back. Always, no problem at all. And he's 5.5. He's done that for 5.5 years. Never been an issue. Oh, he's just hacking. Anyway, so a couple nights ago, he just didn't come back after about 10 minutes. And we were like, oh, that's a bit odd. And then my dad went out looking for him, couldn't find him. About 15 minutes in, we were starting to get a bit worried. So then we all came out, except for my brother, who does not like Milo at all. He wasn't even aware it was happening, but he definitely would not have helped, which is fair enough. It's not his dog. Anyway, we all went out looking for him for about 40 minutes or so, and it was pitch black, and we had torches, and we were calling for him. We were saying, Milo! And I'm not going to say it now because he's right there, but if we say the word squirrel, there's some ASMR for you there. If we say that really loud, and we say it a couple times over and over and over, that just means to him, go find an S. We call them S's. And they never catch them, but they just like to chase them. And to be honest, it's not very nice for the S's, but it means that they don't eat all the bird food that we put out. So unfortunately, we do allow the dogs to chase them. Anyway, we were trying all the tactics to get him in, like saying S and saying his favourite treats and everything, and he just would not show up, and it was very unusual. And then, before that, Mum just said to me, I've got a mother's instinct, I think he might not be with us anymore.
And I was like, dramatic.
Oh no!
Mentally preparing myself for the worst.
Yeah, because this never happens. So we were getting a little bit upset. And then
Emma saved the day.
No, Milo found me. He's absolutely fine. He came running towards me. I saw this distant, small shape sort of bouncing in the distance, and then as he came closer towards my light, it looked like the colour of Milo. First of all, it was the shape, then it was the colour, and then I was like, oh my god, it's Milo! And he came right up to me, and he looked really nervous, and he let me pick him up, because he doesn't usually runs away. Anyway, long story short, he had a little tiny bump sort of on his eyebrow, and a little grey, dusty sort of swatch of something. And all the next day, we were just trying to rack our brains to understand what had happened. We said, maybe a fox chased him and he bumped into a tree and he got a concussion. And then later that day, I was walking the dog Maisie, our golden retriever, and I walked past our bonfire, which was 30 seconds away from where I found it, or where he found me. And in the bonfire there is loads of grey dusty bits, loads of ash, so we think he got stuck in the bonfire. So it was very sad.
So we have to, actually, being boringly practical, we should go and check that, shouldn't we?
Probably, yeah.
Although I don't think he'll be going back there. Mind you, if he's getting trapped, maybe other things
Maybe
We
bunnies.
could
got
check
loads
it
of
out.
bunnies.
Yeah.
So anyway, so Milo had a big trauma, and
it's like Butterfly Central here.
I know.
There's millions of them.
Everywhere you look,
insane.
it's gorgeous.
They're enjoying the butterfly bush, which you'd expect
Oh,
the buddleia.
yeah.
Beautiful.
Nice.
Very cool. Well, it's been wonderful chatting away.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you for telling that story so beautifully.
Not at all.
About Milo.
Just before I go, did I ask you what your favourite part of the school garden is?
You asked me... Yes, you
I
asked
asked you
me
about the new...
plants.
I think I asked you about the new gardening. I don't know if I specifically...
Ooh.
Sorry if I have. Do you have a favourite part?
Well, I like the plants we mentioned. So the verbena I'm very fond of. And the roses. And the Crocosmia lucifer. Favourite part? I don't have any one part that's I do like the lilies in the pots we talked about. I like the overall effect. I don't know if that's a fudgy answer.
No, not at all.
But I like the box edging, which does have the caterpillar in places.
Yeah.
So it's been denuded in one or two places. And in fact, we found a very unusual moth, which I wasn't familiar with, or rather you did. He said, what is this moth? It keeps landing on me. I said, I don't know, it's beautiful. And you kindly looked it up and you said to me, oh, Mum, it's a box tree moth. And I went, oh, box tree moth. I was like, hang on a minute.
No!
I mean, we've got lots of those, I know we have, because I've seen the damage that they've done. But I've chosen not to take the box out. And
nice.
what they seem to be very good at doing is nearly killing it. but not
Okay.
quite, and then it comes back again.
Oh, good.
So
good.
I'm living with that. But in terms of what I like, I do like the box hedge, and then which is a bit more sort of clipped, and then all the exuberant planting behind it, which is, not an unusual thing. Look up at the butterfly bush. You see how many there are.
I can't actually from where I'm sitting.
I didn't think there were many, and then they all moved. You realise there's a red admiral on the left.
Oh, I see two. I think it's just where I'm
there's
sat.
several. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful.
Anyway, great.
So my favourite part.
Oh, sorry, I didn't ask you.
No, it's
Apologies.
no problem. Well, I did mention just before we sat down, there's just this one tiny section which I particularly like, where it's just a little group in the borders of some beautiful different peachy flowers. There's different ones, and they're all this gorgeous shade of peach. I don't really know how else to describe it. And it's just
one's an achillea. There's a salmony
colour, and
I
it's
think
just
called
really
salmon
lovely.
Queen or something. If we might photograph it.
Yeah,
I'll put
I'll put a picture definitely, at least on the show notes for sure. You can see that on our website. Link to that in the description.
Yeah.
So that is a very tiny section which I really like.
I like that too.
I like the whole effect as well. I really enjoy all the different colours.
Yeah.
There's lots of orange and red, but then white balances out nicely. There's lovely new pots of loads of lovely colourful flowers by the school, which is very
some
inviting.
pelargoniums, which are always lovely and scented.
Which ones are those?
They're the pink ones.
Oh, lovely.
They're like geraniums. They're like sort of slightly more tender geraniums, basically, but very, very highly scented. So they're really nice to put either side of a doorway, because when you go through the doorway, you get a...
Like the lilies.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Beautiful. There's one other section I really like, which is there's this beautiful wooden bench, and there's some cascading white, sort of champagne-y coloured roses, and I think that's very, very beautiful. And once again, very cottage core. I think I'm going to have to try and mention cottage core once every episode, because I think I've done it so far. Oh, and one more thing. I also really enjoy, there's these beautiful, we've had these forever, beautiful fish. They're these metal-shaped fish on these rusty, they're on these long sticks, and I know this is obviously a fact, but it looks like they're swimming through the planting, and it's just really fun. It's not tacky. It sounds a bit like, ooh, no, it's not tacky at all. It's really tasteful, really beautiful. It just adds a bit of fun, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I bought those when we did the celebrity stage at Malvern for the
awesome.
RHS, and that was part of that. So it reminds me of doing that show garden.
That's lovely.
Yeah, so that's quite a nice memory. And actually another plant I love, which arrived a bit too late to plant into the garden because the borders were filling out. There's a rose there called Coco Loco.
Oh, what a lovely
Isn't that
colour!
an amazing colour?
I've never seen a colour like that. It's like beige sounds horrible because that sounds really boring. It's like a very, I don't know, unique.
It's like a satin pink sort of ball gown that's been kept in an attic for 100 years. It's got that kind of nostalgic sort of
very
pinky,
I can't think of the word,
sort of
like
colour.
mature, kind of
like an
sophisticated,
antique.
beautiful.
It's a lovely colour, isn't it?
What's it called?
It's called Coco Loco.
That's a fun name, and it is actually a bit cocoa coloured, a little bit. Coco Loco. Does that come from somewhere Spanish?
I don't know. I don't think so.
We just had 2 more butterflies fly right past our eyes.
It's so lovely.
Fantastic.
Wonderful. Well,
Brilliant.
I think that's it for another week.
Yeah.
Or fortnight. I should say.
Yes, absolutely.
Should we, next one, should we try and do it by the lake?
Yes. We were planning last time to do this episode by the lake, but we just thought the school garden looked so beautiful. We couldn't
resist it.
We could not. So, we're thinking the lake, but plans may change in the meantime. If we got ADHD, so if we get a bit
get distracted by a nice rose.
Let's do it there. So but that sounds nice because we've been having, as Mum briefly mentioned earlier, a heat wave in the UK, which is so funny because we all year complain about how blooming cold and wet it is all year, and then when the heat wave finally comes, we love it for a day, and then we get a bit bored of it. We're like, it's too hot. So because we've got this lovely heat wave, which I'm enjoying, although it is a bit hot, I think the lake is a fantastic suggestion because it's quite nice and shaded and cool. Although, just thinking about it, we might have to wear some long trousers
that's true.
because it has been mosquito central recently. Yesterday I got bit about 5 times, and I had
that is a good point.
I had a bite. Oh, I don't know how big, like
a saucer.
Yeah, it was like the length of a small ruler across the whole back of my thigh.
Well, we might revise that. I think that is... We'll see.
Maybe we'll do some long trousers. We'll think about
that's
it.
True. But that's a very good point.
Yeah. But anyway, right, well, I'm going to wrap this up. So thank you, Mum.
Thank you, my darling.
Not at all for joining us. And like with the first episode, when we first sat down here, it was a little bit grey, which was a bit of a nice change, actually, because it's been so hot. It was nice to have it a bit cool. But since we've been sat out here...
Brilliant.
It's so
Blue
sunny.
Skies and amazing sunshine.
And it's warm, but there's a nice breeze.
It's like being on holiday.
It is. It's absolutely perfect. And I'm sat in my beautiful school garden with all these amazing flowers, and I've got my wonderful mother here, and
ditto.
Life is pretty good.
Yay.
So I'm very grateful for this moment.
Me too, darling.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to thank all our wonderful listeners for watching. And if you had a moment to share this podcast with a friend and like and review and all that good stuff, we would be very much appreciative of that. And this podcast is on many platforms, so depending on what platform you're on, we would be very appreciative if you subscribed or added our podcast to your list. That would mean a lot if you enjoy listening to our fortnightly chats. And if you want to check out more show notes to see images of what we talked about, you can see that on our website, and it will also have a link in the video description. Or if you want to download our weekly sheets to see loads of images of exactly where we're sat and all the beautiful planting we've been describing, then that is also in the description or on our website. And just again, you can find that specifically by signing up to our mailing list or joining our free Facebook group called Creative Space. So, I think, shall we say goodbye?
Bye!
Bye!